So far I'm a YA author. I published Power Plays with Kato in 2007. Coming out of the gate as a first author, I was really lucky. This book was nominated for 3 Saskatchewan Book Awards. Phenomenal. I had no idea what a big deal that was until I wrote the second one, and my second one wasn't nominated. But these 2 books are part of a trilogy about girls hockey, and they're set in Estevan. And they also deal with teen issues like bullying. In this one also explores bullying, but gets a little bit more into more high school type of issues like binge drinking, cutting, that kind of thing. And then the third one in the series, which is called Breakaway, will deal more with sex and dating, as well as girls hockey.
And that one's coming out soon?
Well, I'm just in the process of doing final revisions, and hopefully next fall, 2012. Yeah.
And how do you find the revision process?
Oh, you know what? I'm my own editor, right? So I have they assign an editor, and they're very, very helpful making suggestions. But once I understand, once I see the flaw that the editor points out, I see it everywhere. So the editing process, or the revision process, is huge for me. I spend hours and hours, because I don't ever want to get up in front of a class and be reading from a book and think, I should not have left that word in that sentence, or that sentence should have been restructured. So it's not really the story that gets restructured. Every single sentence has to be, looked at, examined. Is it worded exactly the way I want it? So yeah, it's tiring.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, do you find that it just goes through many rewrites?
Oh, it does, and it's very difficult to let go. To say, okay, now it's yours, because I would just like to tweak that little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, because with myself, I have a graphic novel I'm working on with a friend, and I find that how many times I've looked at it and changed and changed and changed, and that's just part of it, though, unnecessary evil. And then, so how did you get your start with publishing everything?
Okay, so I started writing this book in the late 90s, and submitted it. I probably didn't finish it, I think, until about 2002. Sent it off to Orca. They rejected it actually twice. Got rejections from Thistledown, Anik, Penguin, Fitzhenry Whiteside, numerous rejections. And every time I got a rejection, I would sit down, do some corrections, revisit the manuscript. And so the very first manuscript and the 8 were significantly different. But I sent it off to Kato in the summer of 2006. They called me in November and said, we like your manuscript. We're just wondering if you'd be willing to make just tweak a couple of things, add a little bit more of this, more adding than subtracting. I said, I'll do anything. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do. And they called me back 3 weeks later and said, we had our board of directors meeting, and we would love to publish your manuscript. And Kato has been phenomenal publisher. I'm so lucky that I live down by Estevan, so I'm 2 hours away, and I can just to walk in the office and have a conversation with the managing editor, and it's great. So yeah, I feel very blessed.
No, excellent. That's really great. And so, mainly novels, or do you do any other sort of writing?
I've written. Okay, so I do this YA thing. I also write plays. And I wrote a number of plays when I was a teacher, because it was a lot cheaper to write plays than it was to pay the royalties and that kind of thing. So I wrote a couple of student productions every year, and we performed those. And I also write for community theater. I started a community theater group in Lapman, and we put on a play every year. And the cast, the number of characters I have is how many actors I have. So this year I have 15, actors, and so those I don't really look at publication for, because who wants to play with 15 people? But I have had a couple of my student plays have been published by Baker's Plays out of New York, which is pretty nice.
And which plays were those ones?
One was a parody of a murder mystery. It's called Sam Spud Private Eye. Sam Spud has a junk food addiction, so that's really geared at at middle years kids. And that play has been performed in New Zealand, in New Jersey, in Utah. So I get royalties from that. That's kind of cool. And then I have another one which is a parody of the horror genre. It's called The Banes of Darkwood. So I have a vampire married to a mad scientist. Their son is a werewolf. things are not genetically possible, I know, but
Right.
you know,
It's
in
the
that
point of
world.
it.
But we're making fun of it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's what I do.
That's excellent. That's really, really cool to hear, actually. And so, other than the third book here, what else do you have on the go right now?
I'm actually working on a YA. This will probably be also a trilogy, but it's what I call alternative history. It's not fantasy because I have, well, it is kind of fantasy, but I don't have magic. I don't have dragons. I don't have sorcerers. It could actually have happened. It's just that I'm making up the cultures. So I have one culture called the Sequoia. They live sort of on, they're like where the giant redwoods would be, like in California. So I researched the Aboriginal people who lived in that area, and I'm basing the way that these characters live on that. But I'm making up, you know, everything else.
Well, yeah, a lot of the creative liberties in the fiction comes in, right? So, and so you find a lot of research goes into a lot of it, right?
Tremendous! Every single thing is, you know. So the time period would probably be about the 1500s. So yeah, no, it's a lot. You think, well, I'm going to write a fantasy, then I won't have to research. But because of the way I've chosen to write it, everything has to be researched.
And do you find that gets overwhelming?
No, I kind of enjoy it, but it's a longer process than what I thought. You know, I thought, well, I'll be done this book by Christmas.
Yeah.
No, it's probably going to be next Christmas.
Right.
But that's all right.
Oh, excellent. And do you have any advice? I'm part of a group called Prairie Pens, and we meet about once a month as well. And a lot of them are kind of looking for advice about how to get started, or just what sort of mindset.
How to get started with writing, or how to get started with publishing?
Actually, with publishing, but that's a good question too. With writing, like especially with myself, sometimes as much as I want to write, like with writer's block or anything like that, or just like your frame of mind. Do you ever find that you have problems with that?
Oh yeah.
And like, what do you kind of do to get yourself out?
You know what? I usually just try and jump to another place in the story. I just, you know, I write about what I want. You know, if something right there just doesn't grasp me, then I think, okay, well, I do want to write this part. And so actually, this book I wrote in a very chronological fashion. You know, this chapter, then this chapter, then this chapter. This one, I wrote probably half of it. Then I don't know if I really had, I don't know if I'd call it writer's block, but I jumped ahead and I wrote the ending, and then I wrote up to the ending. And I found that was very freeing because I knew where I was going, and I think sometimes that's where writer's block comes from. You're not sure of what's going to happen next, so, well, write what is going to happen next, and then write up to it.
Exactly. It's like you have a destination in mind, but how to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so in terms of publishing yourself, I guess something to kind of look at, they had a lot of questions, but they don't even know like where to go to. Or,
well, you know what? There's the writer's market is an excellent tool for finding a publisher. And with the internet, you can find or belong to, you know, join the Saskatoon Writers Guild. They're very, very helpful in terms of publication. They have a mentorship program. You know what, you can get your manuscript evaluated for a fee. So and belonging to a writers group, I think is hugely important because it kind of keeps writing in the forefront. If you have to meet once a month, especially if you do meetings where you share what you write. Our writers group meets at least twice a month. We have one formal meeting, and we also have another meeting where we just get together and read our stuff. And we also do group critiques. We used to bring in writers all the time, like professional writers, but we found that we can critique each other pretty well. So we do, you know, we submit 10 pages to each other and do that kind of thing.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Well, perfect. Thank you very much for talking with me.
Thank you.
It was nice meeting you.
And what's your name?
My name is Kevin. Kevin Lennon.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Well, thank you very much. And would you mind actually a picture as well? And
Sure.
Perfect.